Princess Catherine, Prince William and the royals attends Christmas Day service at Sandringham. The estate was quiet, except for the soft crunch of footsteps on the gravel paths and the distant calls of winter birds greeting the day. Inside, the grand halls of the house were alive with a different kind of energy, a gentle but purposeful bustle that came with preparing for one of the most important days of the year, Christmas Day. Princess Catherine moved gracefully through the corridors, her long coat brushing lightly against the polished wooden floors. Her calm presence seemed to steady everyone around her, from the staff arranging flowers to the aides coordinating schedules. Though the house was large and filled with history, today it felt warm and personal, as if every corner had been quietly transformed to welcome a day of family, faith, and tradition. Catherine's hands were full but steady, adjusting the placement of Christmas decorations and making sure that the youngest members of the family would be dressed warmly yet elegantly for the morning service. The children's laughter echoed faintly from the nursery, a sound that brought an involuntary smile to Catherine's face. She paused for a moment at the doorway, watching them play quietly with toys and each other. Their excitement was palpable, but so was their understanding that this day was special, a day when family traditions and public responsibilities intertwined. Catherine knelt briefly to straighten a scarf around one of her children's shoulders, whispering words of encouragement. "You'll look perfect today," she said softly, tucking a stray strand of hair behind a small ear. The child giggled, a mix of pride and joy, and scampered back to the others, leaving Catherine with a brief, satisfied sigh. Down the hall, Prince William was already engaged in his own preparations. He moved with a purposeful calm, greeting members of the household staff with a warm smile and an occasional playful comment. Though he carried the weight of expectation that came with being the future king, today he seemed relaxed, focusing on the small moments that made the day personal and memorable. As he passed the grand staircase, he paused to admire the way the morning light streamed through the windows, casting intricate patterns on the carpet. For a moment, the grandeur of Sandringham was softened by the simple beauty of the day, the kind of quiet detail that often went unnoticed, but that Prince William appreciated deeply. The staff moved with quiet efficiency, adjusting candles, checking the arrangements in the dining rooms, and ensuring that every detail was perfect. Catherine and William exchanged brief nods across the bustling halls, a silent acknowledgement that they were partners in this shared task. There was no need for words. The understanding between them was clear. Both knew that the success of the day depended on attention to detail, patience, and an underlying warmth that made the royal traditions approachable and human. As the morning progressed, the air inside Sandringham seemed to thrum with a sense of expectancy. The smell of fresh pine from the Christmas trees mingled with the subtle scent of polished wood and delicate floral arrangements. Catherine took a moment to adjust a small ornament on the tree in the main hall, ensuring that it caught the light just so. She stepped back to admire the effect, satisfied that the familiar sparkle of the decorations would bring a sense of comfort and joy to everyone who walked through the doors today. In the kitchen, the chefs and staff were preparing the special Christmas breakfast, their movements a coordinated dance honed by years of practice. The sounds of sizzling pans and gentle clinking of cutlery added a lively rhythm to the otherwise serene house. Catherine lingered at the edge of the room for a moment, exchanging a few words with the head chef. She complimented the team on their careful preparations and reminded them to pace themselves. The day would be long, and it was important that everyone enjoyed it as much as the family would. Meanwhile, William checked on the children again, helping them into warm coats and hats, making sure their shoes were polished and their tiny gloves were snug. He lifted one child into his arms, holding them for a moment as they gazed around the hall in awe at the grandeur and festivity. "It's our special day," he said gently, kissing the child on the forehead. "And you're going to make it even brighter." The child's laughter rang out like music, mingling with the soft hum of the household preparing for the day ahead. As the clock in the grand hall ticked closer to the time for departure, the royals gathered briefly to check their arrangements. Catherine adjusted the children's scarves one final time and whispered a few words of encouragement. William reviewed the schedule in his mind, ensuring that everything would proceed smoothly, from the drive to the church to the arrival at St. Mary Magdalene. There was an understanding that, despite the public nature of the event, The day was ultimately about family and the quiet joy of shared tradition. Outside, the grounds of Sandringham were bathed in the soft light of a winter morning. The frost sparkled like tiny diamonds on the grass, and the distant trees swayed gently in the cold breeze. Catherine and William took a moment to step onto the terrace, breathing in the crisp air and appreciating the calm before the day's formalities began. They exchanged a quiet smile, a shared recognition of the beauty and serenity of the moment. For a brief instant, it was just the two of them, surrounded by the history and splendor of Sandringham, yet grounded in the simple, enduring joys of family. Back inside, the staff ensured that the motorcade was ready and that every detail of the departure was in order. Catherine and William moved through the preparations with practiced ease, greeting staff and aides warmly, acknowledging their efforts with sincere gratitude. The children, now dressed and excited, began to chatter about the service ahead, their enthusiasm infectious. Catherine laughed softly at their comments, sharing in their excitement while gently reminding them of the solemnity of the day's traditions. Finally, the moment arrived for the family to assemble for departure. Catherine helped guide the children into their positions, making sure everyone was ready for the short walk to the awaiting vehicles. William checked that the doors were open, the motorcade in position, and that security and aides were ready to assist. The quiet hum of anticipation filled the hall as the family paused for a final moment together, exchanging small smiles and whispered words. It was a moment of connection, a shared understanding that while the day was steeped in ceremony, it was ultimately about togetherness, love, and the joy of celebrating Christmas as a family. As they stepped out into the crisp morning, the air was filled with a sense of expectancy and celebration. Catherine held the hands of the children, helping them navigate the steps and ensuring they were steady. William walked alongside, occasionally sharing a gentle word or a reassuring nod. The soft crunch of boots on the frost-covered gravel announced their arrival to the awaiting motorcade. Outside, a few early risers and locals watched quietly from a respectful distance, catching glimpses of the family as they prepared to leave. Despite the grandeur of Sandringham and the weight of centuries of tradition, the morning remained intimate and personal. Catherine and William moved with a natural grace, embodying both the dignity of their roles and the warmth of their family life. The children's laughter, the gentle guidance of their parents, and the quiet attentiveness of the staff combined to create a scene that was both timeless and immediate, a snapshot of royal life grounded in human connection and festive joy. As the family settled into the vehicles, the anticipation for the Christmas Day service began to mingle with reflections on the morning's quiet moments. Catherine and William exchanged brief, meaningful glances, acknowledging the small victories of the day. The smooth preparation, the children's excitement, the seamless coordination of staff. Each detail mattered, not for public recognition, but for the way it contributed to the warmth, joy, and harmony of the day. The motorcade began to move through the frost-covered paths of the estate, signaling the end of preparations and the beginning of the day's ceremonial events. Catherine and William looked back once at Sandringham, taking in the sight of the house, the gardens, and the frost-tipped trees. It was a moment of reflection, gratitude, and quiet pride. They had successfully guided their family through the morning's preparations, maintaining the delicate balance between public duty and private joy. Inside the vehicle, the children chatted excitedly about the service, the songs, and the festive decorations they hoped to see. Catherine smiled, listening and responding with gentle encouragement, while William shared quiet observations and reminders about the significance of the day. The conversation was light, warm, and filled with the kind of familial intimacy that made the long-standing traditions of the royal family feel personal and approachable. As the motorcade moved toward St. Mary Magdalene Church, the morning sun continued to rise, casting a soft, golden glow over the winter landscape. Catherine and William exchanged occasional glances, sharing unspoken thoughts about the day ahead. The preparation, anticipation, and quiet moments of reflection had created a sense of readiness, a confidence that the family was prepared to step into the ceremony with dignity, warmth, and unity. The first part of the day at Sandringham had come to a close, marked not by spectacle, but by careful attention, shared laughter, and the simple joys of family togetherness. Catherine and William had successfully guided their children through the morning, maintained smooth coordination with their staff, and created a serene, joyful start to the most celebrated day of the year. The stage was set for the next chapter, the journey to the Christmas Day service, where tradition, faith, and family would come together in a moment of enduring significance. The motorcade rolled slowly along the frost-covered driveways of Sandringham Estate, the crisp winter air. Glinting in the morning sun, Princess Catherine sat close to her children, holding their hands gently as they peered curiously out of the car windows at the snow-dusted trees and the early risers who had gathered to catch a glimpse of the family. The children's chatter filled the vehicle with a lively, innocent energy, their voices blending with the soft hum of the engine and the occasional whisper of the driver. Catherine smiled softly, leaning toward them to answer their questions, her calm voice guiding them through the excitement of the journey. Prince William sat opposite her, eyes occasionally scanning the surroundings outside the tinted windows. He exchanged quiet glances with Catherine, a shared understanding passing between them. The journey to St. Mary Magdalene Church was short in distance, but significant in meaning, a bridge between the private warmth of their morning preparations and the public tradition of the Christmas Day service. William's gaze softened as he watched his children's faces light up with curiosity, their small hands pressing against the glass, eyes wide at the frost sparkling in the sunlight. He leaned slightly toward them, offering gentle reminders to be careful in their excitement, speaking in soft tones that carried both authority and affection. Outside the vehicle, the snow-covered landscape of Norfolk seemed almost magical. Frosted trees lined the narrow lanes, their branches sparkling in the sunlight like delicate crystal. The occasional sound of birds calling added a natural melody to the serene morning. Villagers and tourists, wrapped in warm coats and scarves, had begun to gather along the roadside, their faces bright with anticipation. Some waved small Union Jacks, while others whispered quietly among themselves, hoping for even the briefest glimpse of the royal family. The motorcade's approach was met with polite applause and respectful nods, a warm welcome to a family whose presence had become a cherished part of Christmas for so many. Catherine leaned toward her eldest child, pointing out the snow-covered fields stretching to the horizon. "Look at how beautiful everything is," she said softly, her eyes reflecting the gentle light outside. "This is what makes Christmas at Sandringham so special. We are lucky to see it like this." The child's eyes sparkled with understanding, nodding enthusiastically, before turning to point at a flock of birds taking flight in the distance. Catherine laughed quietly, reaching over to squeeze the small hand in reassurance, grounding them in the calm and warmth of family togetherness even as the world outside seemed vast and exciting. William, meanwhile, took a brief moment to check on the route and timing with the security team. Although the journey was familiar, attention to detail was crucial. He spoke quietly into a discreet communication device, confirming that the motorcade would remain on schedule and that all preparations at the church were proceeding smoothly. The seriousness of his role did not overshadow the warmth he shared with his family. Instead, it created a balance that allowed both the public duties and private joys of the day to coexist harmoniously. Inside the vehicle, the children began to ask questions about the church, the service, and the people they might see along the way. Catherine answered each question patiently, weaving stories of tradition, faith, and family together in a way that felt natural and engaging. She spoke of the history of St. Mary Magdalene Church, the significance of Christmas Day in their faith, and the joy of seeing the local community come together to celebrate. Her words were simple but meaningful, creating an atmosphere of anticipation that was both educational and comforting for the young listeners. William joined in, sharing memories from his own childhood visits to the church with his parents and siblings. He spoke of the cold winter mornings, the scent of pine and candles, and the excitement of preparing for the service. His stories were lighthearted, sometimes drawing soft laughter from the children, and other times prompting thoughtful silence as they imagined the scenes he described. Together, Catherine and William managed to make the journey both entertaining and meaningful, blending the magic of family moments with the weight of tradition and public expectation. Outside, the gathered onlookers continued to watch with respectful distance. Some families had brought their children, hoping to capture the sense of wonder and excitement that accompanied the royal family's Christmas visit. Others simply stood quietly, enjoying the sight of the snow-blanketed estate and the motorcade moving with measured grace. Though the royals were accustomed to public attention, there was a warmth in these quiet interactions, a connection that transcended the formality of their roles and reminded everyone of the shared joy of the season. As the motorcade continued along the winding roads, the children grew increasingly animated, pointing out familiar sights along the way. Catherine encouraged them to notice the small details, the way the frost clung to the branches, the occasional rabbit hopping across a field, the way the sunlight reflected off the snow. William, listening to their observations, nodded in agreement, occasionally adding a detail of his own or asking a gentle question to spark their imagination. The journey became a quiet lesson in observation, appreciation, and wonder, grounded in the simple beauty of the winter landscape. The car passed through a small village where locals had gathered along the sidewalks, waving and smiling. Catherine and William exchanged quiet nods with the driver to ensure a smooth passage, while the children pressed their hands to the windows, fascinated by the sight of the people waiting. The villagers' expressions were a mixture of excitement and respect, reflecting a shared understanding that this annual visit was more than a routine event. It was a tradition that connected the monarchy with the community, a symbol of continuity and shared celebration. Catherine leaned over to point out a small churchyard, its gravestones dusted with snow. "This is part of our history too," she said gently. "We remember those who came before us, and their stories help us understand why we celebrate today." The child nodded solemnly, a quiet understanding settling in their eyes, before turning back to the window to watch the passing scenery. William, observing the interaction, felt a sense of quiet pride in the way their children were learning not only about tradition, but also about respect, gratitude, and the importance of family. The conversation inside the car shifted naturally to the service itself. Catherine spoke of the hymns that would be sung, the readings that would be shared, and the gentle rituals that marked the day. She encouraged the children to pay attention, to participate respectfully, and to enjoy the moments of stillness and reflection. William added gentle reminders about posture, quiet tones, and the importance of listening, not as a rule, but as a way to honor the traditions that had been passed down through generations. Their words were soft but firm, a balance of guidance and warmth that made the children feel prepared without pressure. As the motorcade approached the church, the anticipation among both the family and the onlookers increased. The narrow lane opened onto the small churchyard, where early congregants had already begun to gather. The church's stone walls glistened in the sunlight, frost shimmering on the roof, and the tall steeple rose gracefully into the winter sky. Catherine and William exchanged a quiet glance, acknowledging the beauty of the moment and the significance of the tradition. The children's eyes widened with wonder, their excitement tempered by the quiet reverence that surrounded them. The vehicles came to a gentle stop, and the family began to prepare for the brief walk from the motorcade to the church doors. Catherine helped the children from their seats, holding hands and guiding them carefully over the frosty grass. William assisted as well, ensuring that every step was safe and measured. The sound of crunching snow under their boots was accompanied by the soft whispers of onlookers, a respectful chorus that underscored the blend of public attention and private ceremony that marked the day. Catherine adjusted a scarf around one of the children's necks, smoothing the fabric and offering a gentle smile. "We're almost there," she said softly. "Let's remember to hold hands and walk together." The child nodded, a sense of responsibility mingling with excitement, and gripped her hand more firmly. William mirrored the gesture with the other hand, creating a small circle of security and warmth as the family moved forward together. The local villagers, standing respectfully to the side, waved and whispered greetings as the family approached. Catherine and William acknowledged them with gentle nods and warm smiles, their eyes reflecting appreciation for the quiet enthusiasm of the crowd. The children waved back, their small gestures met with delighted smiles, creating a moment of connection that was fleeting yet meaningful. In these brief interactions, the monarchy's presence was humanized, reminding everyone that behind the titles and traditions were parents, children, and family moments that mirrored those of many households. As they neared the church doors, Catherine took a moment to pause and look up at the building. The sunlight caught the stained glass windows, sending shards of color dancing across the stone steps. She felt a quiet sense of reverence, a reminder of the centuries of tradition that had unfolded in this small church. William, standing beside her, shared the same feeling, a mutual understanding passing between them without words. The children, sensing the change in atmosphere, slowed their steps and followed closely, their energy now tempered by the solemnity of the moment. The family reached the doors of St. Mary Magdalene Church, where they were greeted warmly by the clergy and a few members of the congregation. Soft words of welcome were exchanged, handshakes and brief bows marking the transition from the public journey to the sacred space of the service. Catherine and William led the children inside, guiding them carefully over the stone steps and into the quiet interior, where the muted glow of candlelight and the rich scent of pine and incense welcomed them. Inside the church, the atmosphere shifted to one of quiet anticipation and reflective serenity. Catherine whispered a few words to the children, reminding them to listen and participate, while William ensured that they were positioned comfortably and respectfully. The congregation, aware of the family's presence, maintained a gentle hush, creating an environment that was both welcoming and reverent. The moment marked the culmination of the journey, where family, tradition, and public ceremony converged in a shared celebration of Christmas. For a brief moment, Catherine and William allowed themselves to simply stand and take in the scene. The flickering candlelight, the gathered congregation, and the subtle sense of history that filled the church. The children looked around with wide eyes, absorbing the sights and sounds, and Catherine gently held their hands, grounding them in the calm and meaning of the space. William's arm brushed lightly against hers, a silent acknowledgement of the journey they had shared and the moments of connection that had prepared them for the service ahead. The journey from Sandringham House to St. Mary Magdalene Church had been more than a simple drive. It had been a series of quiet lessons, small gestures, and moments of anticipation that connected the family to each other and to the traditions they cherished. It was a journey filled with laughter, curiosity, reflection, and respect, weaving together the personal and public threads of a Christmas celebrated with grace, warmth, and meaning. As the family settled into their places inside the church, the sense of calm and purpose deepened. Catherine whispered a final word of encouragement to the children. William adjusted a coat or scarf, and together they prepared to step fully into the rituals and celebrations of the Christmas Day service. Outside, the winter landscape of Norfolk continued to sparkle in the sunlight, a quiet reminder of the beauty, serenity, and timeless charm of this special place and day. The grand wooden doors of St. Mary Magdalene Church opened with a soft creak, revealing the warm, quiet interior bathed in the gentle glow of candlelight. Princess Catherine and Prince William stepped inside, guiding their children carefully by the hand. The air was filled with the rich scent of pine, wax, and winter flowers, mingling with a quiet hush that seemed to settle over the congregation. The church was adorned simply yet beautifully for the occasion. Evergreen garlands wound around the pews, and small bouquets of holly and ivy added splashes of red and green against the soft beige of the stone walls. The stained glass windows caught the sunlight filtering in from the frosty morning outside, casting colored patterns on the stone floor, making the space seem almost magical. Catherine's eyes softened as she took in the familiar scene, a mix of tradition, faith, and family warmth. She whispered gently to her children, "Remember to stay close, listen carefully, and enjoy the music." The children nodded eagerly, eyes wide with a mixture of curiosity and awe. They had seen photos of the church before, but nothing compared to the feeling of stepping inside, the soft echo of their footsteps on the stone floor, and the distant hum of whispered conversations filling the space. William walked beside them, offering quiet encouragement and occasional reminders to keep their voices low, his hand occasionally brushing theirs in a reassuring gesture. The service began quietly, with a soft intonation from the clergy greeting the congregation. The children looked up in curiosity as the familiar voices began the opening prayers. Catherine and William guided them to their seats, ensuring they were positioned comfortably and respectfully. The children shifted slightly, their small bodies full of energy but tempered by the quiet reverence that surrounded them. Catherine smiled inwardly, proud of how they were absorbing the atmosphere, learning the balance of participation, attentiveness, and respect for tradition. The first hymn started softly, the choir's voices blending in harmonious cadence. The music swelled gently through the church, filling every corner with the rich tone of voices united in celebration. Catherine's children looked up, eyes wide with fascination, as she encouraged them to listen and follow along. William joined in quietly, humming the tune under his breath, a private connection to the melody that carried them through both memory and tradition. The rhythm of the music, the gentle sway of voices, and the solemnity of the setting seemed to transport everyone into a space that was at once ancient and deeply personal. The readings followed, voices rising and falling in cadence with the words of Scripture. Catherine leaned slightly forward, whispering small explanations to the children about the passages, the significance of the stories, and the meaning behind the words. Her explanations were simple but thoughtful, connecting the ancient tales to lessons about kindness, family, and generosity. William added occasional comments too, sharing memories from his own childhood, recalling how he had listened with his parents and siblings in this very church, learning not just about faith but about family togetherness and the quiet joy of shared traditions. The children's attention was held by more than just the words. Their eyes darted around the church, fascinated by the play of light through the stained glass windows, the gleam of polished wood, and the soft flicker of candles. Catherine noticed their curiosity and leaned down to whisper, "Look at the light shining through the glass. Isn't it beautiful how it colors everything?" The child nodded, pointing to a patch of red and blue dancing on the floor, and Catherine smiled, appreciating the way the young ones found wonder in the details, just as she did. Outside, the quiet murmur of the congregation mingled with occasional faint creaks of the old wooden pews. But inside the church, the family felt cocooned in a space of reflection and warmth. William's eyes swept over the congregation, noting the respectful attention, the gentle smiles, and the subtle nods of acknowledgement. Though accustomed to public appearances, he felt a moment of personal connection here, seeing familiar faces, acknowledging the centuries of tradition, and sharing in the quiet dignity of the service. The children followed their parents' example, watching quietly, absorbing not just the rituals but the mood, the sense of calm, and the shared reverence. As the service continued, the choir rose again, filling the church with a joyful hymn. The children were encouraged to hum along softly, their voices blending timidly but beautifully with the adult singers. Catherine's hand rested lightly on one child's shoulder, guiding them, while William's quiet nod of approval reinforced the gentle encouragement. The congregation's eyes occasionally drifted to the family, noting their calm presence, the tender guidance of their children, and the warmth that seemed to radiate naturally from them. It was a subtle but powerful display of the balance between public role and private family connection. The prayers began, soft and deliberate, each one offering reflection on gratitude, hope, and the joy of Christmas. Catherine closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the stillness and the weight of tradition. William followed, bowing his head slightly in quiet acknowledgement. The children watched, some mimicking the gestures of their parents, others simply observing, learning without words the rituals that had been practiced for generations. The moment was simple but profound, connecting them across time to countless families who had gathered here before, seeking solace, guidance, and celebration. After the prayers, the service moved to the sermon. The clergy spoke in calm, deliberate tones, weaving stories of the Nativity with reflections on compassion, generosity, and the importance of family. Catherine and William listened intently, occasionally nodding in acknowledgement, guiding their children to do the same. The children were fascinated, their young minds absorbing the rhythm of the words, the expressions, and the quiet gravitas of the moment. Catherine whispered explanations when they seemed confused or curious, ensuring that they understood the lessons in a simple, relatable way. The atmosphere in the church was peaceful, a careful balance of solemnity and warmth. Every glance, every small gesture between the family members spoke volumes. Catherine's hand resting lightly on her child's shoulder, William's occasional whisper of encouragement, and the children's quiet curiosity combined to create a tableau of family unity, love, and tradition. The congregation, though focused on the service, seemed to sense the gentle guidance of the parents and the respectful attention of the children, creating a shared understanding that this was more than ceremony. It was the living continuation of family values and seasonal joy. As the service moved to the lighting of candles, Catherine guided her children carefully, helping them hold the small flames without fear. William demonstrated as well, showing them how to steady the candles and focus on the small, warm glow. The children watched intently as the flickering light reflected in the stained glass windows and across the faces of the congregation. "Look at how the light spreads," Catherine whispered softly. "It reminds us that even small acts can brighten the world." The children nodded, their eyes wide with understanding, and William smiled, appreciating how the simple symbolism was connecting deeply with their young minds. The final hymn of the service began, more joyful and uplifting than the previous ones. The choir led with a gentle enthusiasm, and Catherine encouraged her children to sing softly, their voices blending sweetly with the larger group. William joined in, humming along, the family together in harmonious rhythm. The congregation's voices rose, filling the church with warmth and energy, and Catherine felt a quiet pride in the way their children participated, not just out of duty, but out of genuine enjoyment and understanding. As the service drew to a close, the clergy offered a final blessing, and the family bowed their heads in respect. The children, though small and young, understood the significance, guided by the calm, steady presence of their parents. Catherine whispered a soft word of encouragement, and William nodded, a quiet exchange of gratitude and pride passing between them. The congregation began to rise slowly, the echo of their movements filling the church with a gentle rhythm as the final moments of reflection passed. When the service officially ended, Catherine and William guided their children carefully toward the doors. The sunlight streaming through the stained glass windows greeted them once again, illuminating their path and creating a beautiful interplay of color on the stone floor. Outside, the winter landscape of Sandringham awaited, the fresh snow sparkling in the afternoon light. The congregation and villagers gathered respectfully, offering warm smiles and quiet greetings as the family stepped outside. Catherine and William acknowledged them with gentle nods and small waves, their children waving in return, a gesture of connection and appreciation. The children's excitement returned in small, joyful bursts as they looked around at the crisp winter day. Catherine's hand rested lightly on one child's shoulder as she pointed out the snow-covered trees and the sunlight glinting on the frozen branches. "Christmas is everywhere," she whispered, "even in the small details." William smiled, sharing the moment of simple beauty with his family, a reminder that the day was not just about ceremony but about noticing the magic in ordinary moments. The family walked slowly back toward the motorcade, taking in the sights and sounds, greeting a few familiar faces along the way. Catherine and William allowed their children to ask questions and comment on the service, responding with gentle explanations and encouragement. The conversation was light, filled with curiosity and reflection, a continuation of the lessons learned inside the church. Each step, each small interaction reinforced the balance between tradition, public presence, and family warmth that defined the day. The journey back to the vehicles was calm and measured, the children holding their parents' hands tightly, their faces glowing with happiness and curiosity. Catherine whispered words of praise for their attentiveness, and William offered quiet jokes to lighten the mood. Outside, the villagers continued to watch respectfully, understanding that this annual visit was a moment of connection, celebration, and shared history. The family's presence was both regal and human, a delicate balance that inspired admiration and warmth. As they settled into the motorcade once more, the sense of fulfillment was palpable. The service had been a success, not in grandeur or spectacle, but in the quiet, meaningful ways that truly mattered. Catherine and William shared a brief, knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement of the family's harmony, the children's engagement, and the gentle joy that had permeated every moment. Outside, the winter sunlight continued to glisten on the estate, a reminder of the beauty, serenity, and timeless significance of this Christmas day at Sandringham. The journey back to the house began with quiet conversation about the service, the hymns, the readings, and the simple lessons learned. The children recounted their favorite parts. Catherine and William responded with warmth and gentle guidance, and together they reflected on the meaning of family, tradition, and celebration. Each word, gesture, and glance reinforced the importance of togetherness, the joy of shared experience, and the beauty of small, memorable moments. By the time the motorcade returned to Sandringham, the family had experienced more than a ceremony. They had shared in a tradition, connected with their community, and strengthened the bonds that held them together. Catherine and William prepared to guide their children into the next part of the day. Private family celebrations, meals, and quiet moments of togetherness, carrying forward the joy, reverence, and warmth that had defined the Christmas Day service. The soft crunch of snow beneath. Their boots marked the beginning of the journey back to Sandringham House. Princess Catherine held the hands of her children, walking slowly and carefully, ensuring that each small step was safe and steady. The air was crisp, and the winter sunlight sparkled on the frost-covered trees and the freshly fallen snow. The children's laughter, small but joyful, echoed softly through the quiet lanes, blending with the distant murmur of villagers who had gathered along the roadside. Catherine smiled, feeling a quiet warmth in her chest as she watched them take in the beauty of the winter morning, their eyes wide with wonder. Prince William walked beside them, occasionally bending slightly to adjust a scarf or glove, or to offer a gentle word of encouragement. His eyes scanned the surroundings, noting familiar faces and acknowledging respectful nods and quiet waves. The journey from the church to the motorcade was more than a simple walk. It was a moment of connection with the community, a brief but meaningful exchange between the family and the villagers who had braved the cold to share in the Christmas spirit. William exchanged a brief, polite word with a few onlookers, his calm demeanor conveying warmth and sincerity, while Catherine's soft smile and gentle nods reassured the children and the crowd alike. The children, energized by both the service and the walk, began to chatter excitedly about what they had seen inside the church. "I like the candles, Mama," one exclaimed, eyes sparkling. "And the songs were so pretty," Catherine laughed softly, crouching down to meet their gaze. "Yes, they were," she replied warmly, "and the candles remind us that even a small light can shine brightly. That is part of what Christmas teaches us." William joined in, adding, "And the songs are not just music, they carry messages about kindness, love, and family. That's what makes them so special." The children nodded thoughtfully, their curiosity now mingled with a growing understanding of the day's meaning. As they reached the motorcade, Catherine helped the children into their seats, making sure their coats and scarves were snug and warm. William adjusted the vehicle doors and checked with the driver to ensure a smooth and comfortable ride back to the house. The motorcade rolled slowly along the snow-dusted paths, the soft hum of the engine mingling with the occasional giggles and whispered conversations of the children. Outside, the frost-covered fields glistened in the sunlight, and the occasional bird flitted across the open landscape, adding movement to the still beauty of the winter day. Catherine leaned over to the children, pointing out small details along the route. "Look at how the sunlight touches the trees," she said softly. "See how the frost sparkles like tiny diamonds. Christmas is all around us if we pay attention." The children followed her gaze, their eyes wide with delight, pointing out small details they noticed themselves. A snow-covered branch, a bird perched on a fence post, the way the sunlight reflected on a patch of ice. William smiled, appreciating the way their parents' guidance encouraged observation, mindfulness, and wonder in their young minds. The conversation shifted naturally to the service they had just attended. The children recounted their favorite parts: the hymns, the candles, the way the sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows. Catherine and William listened attentively, validating their observations and adding gentle explanations where needed. "The light through the windows reminds us that even small things can brighten the world," Catherine explained. "And the songs and prayers remind us to care for others just like we care for our family," William added, "and that's why these traditions are so important. They teach us values that we carry with us every day." The children nodded, their young minds connecting the lessons with the tangible experiences of the morning. As the motorcade wound through the quiet lanes of the estate, William's mind drifted briefly to the significance of the day. The Christmas Day service at St. Mary Magdalene Church had been more than a ceremony. It had been a reaffirmation of family, tradition, and the shared joy of community. He glanced at Catherine, who was quietly observing the children's reactions, and felt a deep sense of pride in the way they had guided their family through the morning. Together, they had balanced the public and private aspects of the day, creating a seamless blend of tradition, warmth, and gentle instruction. The children began to ask questions about the history of the church and the people who attended the service. Catherine answered patiently, weaving simple stories that were both informative and engaging. She spoke of families who had been visiting the church for generations, of the way the community came together each year, and of the importance of maintaining these traditions. William added anecdotes from his own childhood, sharing memories of his parents and siblings attending the service, the excitement of decorating for Christmas, and the lessons learned in small but meaningful moments. The children listened intently, absorbing the history and the stories, their imaginations brought to life by the gentle storytelling of their parents. The motorcade passed familiar landmarks on the way back to the house, each one sparking small conversations. Catherine pointed out a cluster of frost-covered trees that had always caught her eye, explaining how their shape reminded her of stars in the sky. William shared a memory of sledding near that same spot as a child, the snow crunching beneath his boots, and the laughter of his siblings filling the winter air. The children laughed at the story, imagining the playful scenes of long ago, and Catherine smiled at the way these shared experiences connected generations, making history feel personal and alive. As they neared Sandringham House, the children's excitement grew in anticipation of the next part of the day, Christmas lunch, gifts, and more family time. Catherine encouraged them to remain patient, explaining that the morning's quiet moments and the service had been important, but the day was far from over. William added light-hearted comments, teasing them gently about who might get to open presents first, prompting giggles and playful chatter. The motorcade approached the estate, the familiar snow-dusted paths and gardens welcoming them home. The family stepped out of the vehicles, greeted by a few staff members who had been preparing the house for their return. Catherine and William exchanged warm words with the team, expressing gratitude for their efforts in making the morning run smoothly. The children ran briefly ahead, their laughter echoing softly through the estate, before returning to their parents, sighed for guidance and gentle supervision. Catherine's hand rested lightly on one child's shoulder, William's on another, creating a circle of connection and reassurance as they walked toward the house. Inside Sandringham, the warmth of the house enveloped them. The scent of roasting food, fresh pine, and delicate pastries filled the air, a comforting reminder of the family traditions that awaited them. Catherine guided the children toward the sitting rooms, encouraging them to remove their coats and gloves, while William checked on the arrangements for the rest of the day. The house was alive with activity, but in a calm and controlled way, the careful coordination of staff and the gentle presence of the family creating a sense of order and warmth. The children explored briefly, their curiosity drawing them to familiar corners of the house. Catherine followed, smiling at their energy and guiding them with soft words. "Remember to stay close," she whispered, "and enjoy the little things around you. Christmas is in the details as much as the big moments." William observed quietly, occasionally adding a light joke or comment, keeping the atmosphere playful yet grounded. The children laughed softly, responding to their parents' warmth, and Catherine and William shared a glance of quiet satisfaction, knowing that the balance of discipline, affection, and guidance was working beautifully. The family gathered in the main dining room for Christmas lunch, the table laid meticulously with fine china, polished silverware, and small festive decorations. Catherine and William ensured the children were seated comfortably, guiding them through simple table manners while encouraging conversation. The children spoke excitedly about the morning's events, the church, the hymns, the candles, and the lessons they had learned. Catherine listened, smiling warmly, and William nodded in agreement, occasionally adding a memory or gentle commentary to enrich the conversation. The lunch was both festive and intimate. The staff moved quietly, ensuring everything ran smoothly while allowing the family to enjoy the moment without interruption. Catherine and William encouraged the children to express gratitude for the food and the efforts of those who had prepared it, reinforcing lessons of respect and appreciation. The conversation flowed naturally, blending light-hearted moments with reflections on the morning's service, creating a sense of continuity between public tradition and private family life. After lunch, the family moved to the sitting room for quiet reflection, storytelling, and the opening of gifts. Catherine and William guided the children gently, encouraging patience, cooperation, and appreciation for one another. The atmosphere was filled with warmth, laughter, and the soft hum of conversation. Each gift was opened with care, small expressions of thoughtfulness exchanged, and the children's joy was palpable. Catherine and William observed quietly, allowing the moment to unfold naturally, appreciating the simple pleasures of shared family time. As the afternoon progressed, the family gathered by the fireplace, sharing stories and memories. Catherine spoke of Christmases past, of traditions maintained and adapted over time, and of the importance of family connection. William added memories from his own childhood, recalling small, seemingly ordinary moments that had carried deep meaning over the years. The children listened intently, absorbing not just the words but the values behind them, the importance of kindness, gratitude, reflection, and togetherness. Outside, the winter sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the estate and turning the snow into a shimmering carpet of gold and silver. Catherine and William paused for a moment by a window, watching the children play briefly on the lawn under the watchful eye of the staff. They shared a quiet smile, a mutual understanding of the day's significance. Public duties had been fulfilled, traditions observed, and the private joy of family celebrated. The balance between ceremony, reflection, and simple human warmth had been maintained, leaving both parents with a sense of fulfillment and quiet pride. As evening approached, the family gathered once more for a brief reflection on the day. Catherine encouraged the children to think about the lessons learned, the importance of caring for one another, the joy of shared experiences, and the significance of maintaining traditions. William added reflections on gratitude, the beauty of giving and receiving, and the importance of noticing small, meaningful details in life. The children responded with thoughtful comments, showing their understanding in simple but sincere words. The day ended with quiet moments by the fireplace, soft music in the background, and the gentle comfort of being together. Catherine and William reflected on the journey of the day, from the early morning preparations, the service at St. Mary Magdalene Church, the interactions with the community, to the intimate family celebrations that followed. Every step had been meaningful, a balance of public presence, tradition, and private warmth. They felt gratitude for the simple joys, the children's engagement, and the sense of continuity that marked the Christmas celebration at Sandringham. As night fell over the estate, the snow-covered grounds glistened under the pale moonlight. Catherine and William checked on their children one last time before they went to bed, sharing soft kisses, gentle words, and quiet smiles. The house settled into a peaceful rhythm, the quiet hum of a day well spent lingering in the air. The balance of tradition, family, and reflection had been maintained, leaving the family united, fulfilled, and ready to enjoy the quiet intimacy of the evening together. The Christmas day at Sandringham had been a journey in every sense, through preparation, ceremony, reflection, and celebration. Catherine and William had guided their family with grace and warmth, ensuring that the children experienced the magic, meaning, and lessons of the day. The villagers, staff, and congregation had witnessed moments of connection, humility, and care, reminding everyone that behind the traditions and the public roles was a family who valued love, togetherness, and the quiet beauty of everyday moments. As the final lights dimmed in Sandringham House, Catherine and William shared a quiet moment together, holding hands by the window and watching the moon cast its silver glow over the snow-covered estate. They reflected on the day, the laughter, the lessons, the traditions upheld, and the joy of simply being together as a family. The children slept soundly, dreaming of candles, hymns, and snowflakes, and the parents felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that they had created memories that would last a lifetime. The day had begun with quiet preparation and ended with reflective intimacy. Every moment from the first steps outside the house to the final glimpses of moonlit snow had been infused with warmth, love, and the enduring spirit of Christmas. Catherine and William, together with their children, had experienced not just a ceremony, but a living, breathing tradition, a reminder that family, faith, and kindness were the true heart of the season.